Now you might say that's not bad. Blacks are 43, whites are 36, Brother Umar. That ain't too much of a difference. Excuse me. Blacks are only 17% of the country. And we're nearly half of the AIDS cases. White folk are nearly 75% of the country. And they're not even half. You got to put it in perspective of our percentages. The reason why we got the highest AIDS rate is because AIDS was created to help exterminate African people. In fact, there was some research that came out that said what? The AIDS virus seeks out cells that have a high concentration of melanin in them. Did y'all hear that? It looks for the melanated cell.
That's right. That's right.
Let's talk about white privilege. I need y'all to know what white privilege is, because we talk about white racism, but we don't talk about white privilege. See, you can fight white racism, mistreatment, and oppression of blacks, but if you don't do anything about the inherent benefits that white people have just by being white, you still don't level the playing field. Are y'all following me? Yeah. So when we talk about doing something about white racism, we need to simultaneously talk about doing something about white privilege. What is white privilege? The benefits afforded to white people, material or immaterial, purely for being white, whether or not they are conscious of it is irrelevant. What's the first benefit of all white people, no matter how rich or how poor they are? They do not have to worry about racism in America. They do not have to worry about being kept from a job, being able to go to college, to get decent health care, being shot by the police. They never have to wake up worrying about that. For the black man, it's in your subconscious every day of your waking life. And black women too. That's the first benefit of white privilege. White people don't have to think about racism, as no people in the world has the ability to systematically deprive them of life, liberty, or the pursuit of happiness. Sometimes when I talk to poor white people, or working class, I got to explain this to them, because some of them think naively that they're in the same boat with black people. They fail to realize that if the cop pulled the car over 2 o'clock in the morning, I might be a drunk black guy, he might be a drunk white guy, we might both come from single parent homes, both of our fathers might be in jail, but he is not likely to be killed by the cops, but I am. Because he's white. Even when he's poor, he benefits from white privilege. Invisibility. White people don't acknowledge black people and don't have to. Blacks are invisible to white people except when we are needed. LeBron James would be unknown except he makes billions for the empire. Oprah would be unknown except she makes billions for the empire. Jay-Z would be unknown except he makes billions for the empire. You only become visible when there's a capitalistic reason for it. Obama would be invisible if he was not needed. Racial terrorism. Black people walk around every day with a subconscious awareness that their lives can be altered any minute by white people. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? How many black brothers never got their college degree just because of racism? How many of us been fired just because we were black? We didn't do that wrong. We just were black. How many of us can't get the houses that we, not that you should be moving out there anyway, but how many of us can't get those houses just because we're black? Did you ever see the Chris Rock stand up where he talked about how his neighbor was a white dentist? Yeah. He said, this is how white racism operates. He said, I'm a multi-million-dollar comedian. My neighbor is a damn dentist who doesn't make half of what I make. But because he's white, they gave him the mortgage out there. You'll never get the mortgage out there. White power domination. All white people have the privilege of knowing that they exercise a degree of control over the lives of black people, be they rich or poor. All white people can exercise a degree over all other black folk. If a white woman accuses a black man of rape, he's guilty until proven innocent. I just watched the case on Netflix before we came here today about a black man from Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
I saw that.
Who spent 20 years in jail for rape of a white woman when he was nowhere around. But just because she was white and he was black, he spent 20 years of his life in jail.
Got the DNA back and everything.
Y'all better wake up to this thing. And I don't want the white folk in the building to say, well, is he advocating? No, I'm not advocating nothing to be done to y'all. I'm advocating that you come into a consciousness of how your people systematically oppress his mind. And I'm not blaming you for what every white person do, but I do blame you for the silent support that you give to the maintenance and proliferation of white supremacy. In other words, what am I saying? There's no white person on earth, no matter how liberal thinking they might be, who's going to voluntarily give up their white supremacy card to be equal with black people. Not one of them will do that. And I'm not saying that they should. I'm just saying I need them and you to understand that they wouldn't do it. Free expression. White people don't have to hide their racism as a condition of privilege. If black people don't like white people, you better keep it to your damn self. You will lose your job. Let them see one of those YouTube clips. You're done! Why? Because they control the institutions that you need to exist. They employ you. They feed you. They educate your children. If the teacher find out who you really are, they might take it out on your kids. And there's almost nothing you can do about it. They control your life. You don't control theirs. So if they want to say something about blacks, they just go ahead and say it. Because you don't control whether they get a job or not. You don't control whether or not they get decent health care or not. You don't control nothing that they need, but they control yours. It's the invisible empire. Becoming white. This is going to shock some of y'all. But did you know up until 1940, if you were Jewish, Italian, Greek, Irish, or any other Southern European, you were not considered white people until 1940. Who knew that? You were called what? Guinea. Which basically was a derogatory term given to Southern European immigrants to emphasize that they all had a little bit of black blood in them. You were Guineas until 1940. And I'm not using that derogatorily, but we need to understand how a lot of white people today were not white 50 years ago. Okay? Mexicans and Hispanics. Latinos have a history of identifying with white people against the interests of blacks and have sought to become white since their arrival in this country. I'm not picking on my Latino brothers and sisters. Y'all African, y'all just don't want to be it sometimes. But ever since Latinos came to America, they have been checking white. Did y'all know that? Not all Latinos, but most Latinos check white. That's why the government created Hispanic in 1970. They said, wait a minute, we got all these Latinos coming over, and they're not saying that they're African when all of them are descendants of enslaved Africans. So what we're going to do, because we don't want them saying they're white, because they are not white, we're going to give them their own box, Hispanic. Now, Hispanic is not a racial term. It's a creation to give Spanish-speaking Africans, and I can say this because my grandfather, my great-grandfather, Cicero Noel Miles, was a Spanish-speaking Cuban. So I can say this because I got Spanish all in my blood, okay? Blacks who speak Spanish, who don't want to be black, don't have to be. You just call yourself Hispanic. And that's what they've been doing since the 40s. You don't agree? Do your research on the creation of Hispanic in the U.S. Census. See why they did it, and you will find they did it because too many Spanish-speaking Africans were saying that they were white, and the government did not agree with that. I'm only telling y'all the history. Expanding whiteness after Reconstruction, more than 20 million dark Europeans came to the United States after 1855 to replace blacks in the labor sector. Pay attention to this, because history is repeating itself now. 20 million whites were brought here to do what? Replace black people in the economic sector. Pay attention to this. To ensure black economic power couldn't place demands on white capitalism. Let me say it again. To ensure that black organized labor can never put demands on American capitalism that would force it to do things that we needed. In other words, the government said we must never rely on the black worker. Never must the destiny of our nation be in the hands of blacks. So they brought the Europeans over to replace us. And it's happening again now with who? Illegal immigrants. They're letting them over to replace blacks. Now, if there's anybody in here who's an illegal immigrant, I'm not knocking you or anything. This is not about individuals, I want to be clear. Because I don't want anybody to know I'm Latino. Is he putting me down? No, I'm not. I don't know you personally. You might identify with your African heritage. I doubt it, but you might. I'm talking about what your group does. I'm talking about group behavior, not individuals. Group. Who can tell me why former President George W. Bush, the son, and Barack Obama made it legal for illegal immigrants to stay in America? They made it legal for illegal immigrants to stay in America to make sure that the corporations had enough workers, since they were putting all the black men in jail. See, by letting the illegal immigrants stay in America, guess what? They don't need us. We can lock all the black men up because we got illegal immigrants who work for less than minimum wage. That's the new hustle. Y'all see, I know y'all see it out here. It's the new hustle. Like, wait a minute, he's not even a citizen. He got the job before me because he will work under the table. It's illegal to pay you under the table. See, he don't have a social security number or a birth certificate. He don't exist. You exist. So trying to pay you under the table, less than minimum wage, can land the employer in court. But he's illegal. So we can pay him whatever we want, and because he don't exist and he's not a citizen in the first place, and we can get him shipped back to where he come from, he'll do what we say. This is the politics. And these topics ain't easy to discuss, but they must be discussed. The chameleon effect. When Jews came to America, they began to intermarry with others and disguise their identity to avoid racism. To be successful, they couldn't identify with the black struggle directly. That's why the American Jews created the NAACP in the early league. To do what? Fund the civil rights struggle. By doing what? Putting the black people out front. Use us to get shot, killed, dogs, water hoses. And once the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 was passed, what happened? Everybody came out the woodworks and said, I'm a minority. Right? Where was they at with the dogs? Where was they at when Dr. King was going to jail over 300 times? There was nowhere to be found, but they gave them the money. They said, here go $100,000, now go and get that Voting Rights Act so we can benefit from it. They don't know us today, do they? They don't know us today. But if it wasn't for us, they wouldn't be where they are. The Revolution of 1940. In 1940, the United States Census began including all Europeans as white. Do your history. Up until 1940, all Europeans were not white people. To ensure that America remained a white country, this was necessary. Mexican Americans were finally considered white. They fought to be white. And they kept losing. Then finally they won. And so if you are Mexican, you can check white on the census. European and Caucasian are not the same. Did you know that? You can be a European but not be a Caucasian. When Chinese people tried to argue that they were Caucasian, it was accepted. But it was clarified that being Caucasian doesn't mean you're white. White is generally reserved for those of Anglo-Saxon, English Protestant, and Nordic stock. Did y'all hear that? So they told the Chinese, you are Caucasian. What's the root word of Caucasian? Asian. Arabs, Europeans, and Chinese folk, those are all cousins. They all come from Asia. They're all related. That's why the court said that you are Caucasian. Chinese people are Caucasian, but you are not European. To be European, you must be blue blood, Nordic, German, English, Protestant. White, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant. I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. When a true blue blood walks in the room, everybody knows it. Even today, you can have a room full of white people, let a blue-eyed blonde hair walk in here. He like he king, because I am the top of the list. You see? This is the census. White, Europe, Middle East, or North Africa. Wait a minute. Did y'all see this? That means what? For purposes of the census, the Arabs that America claimed that they don't like are white people for the census. Look at that. Look at that. Bin Laden, Saddam Hussein. But they still classify them as white people. If you're from North Africa, you can be classified as white, even if your skin be black. Gaddafi would have been considered a white man for U.S. Census. Black, not Hispanic. This is interesting right here, because the census says black, not Hispanic. If Hispanics are not black, why do you have to qualify it? If Hispanics are not black, why do you have to qualify it? Because they are black people too. And then you got Hispanic, not black. Why are you qualifying blackness? Because all you're doing is creating an imaginary line. American Indian and Alaskan go together, and I would